You awaken groggily to the raucous cries of street vendors and quarrels echoing through paper-thin walls. Welcome to your morning in a Roman insula. This crowded tenement is notoriously flimsy, barely held together by cheap mortar and desperation. Living on the higher floors, as most poor Romans do, is particularly hazardous. One heavy-footed neighbor or a spilled cooking pot could bring your ceiling crashing down at any moment. Emperor Augustus, well aware of these dangers, once limited insular heights to around 20 meters, yet structural integrity remained laughable. Your modest room resembles a cramped storage closet, damp and stifling, furnished only with a flea-infested straw mattress. Instead of windows, small holes offer occasional breeze and frequent vermin, simply surviving until breakfast feels like a daily miracle. Your modest insular apartment provides nothing resembling comfort. Furnishings consist solely of a scratchy wool blanket, a chipped clay cup, and perhaps a crude wooden comb. Cooking indoors is strictly forbidden. Fire risk in these overcrowded, wooden structures is disastrously high, and Rome lacks any formal fire department or reliable emergency protocols. Without plumbing, your only sanitation option is a clay chamber pot, shamefully tucked into the corner, awaiting the humiliating journey downstairs to be emptied. Each descent down steep, rickety wooden stairs risks catastrophe. A misstep could lead to serious injury or worse. Daily life here is accompanied by an orchestra of neighbors' intimate noises, arguments and coughing fits, reminding you constantly how thin these walls truly are. Privacy is a fantasy you'll soon learn to abandon. Every morning, you confront the grim task of emptying your chamber pot into the gutter, a revolting necessity dictated by Rome's severe lack of indoor plumbing. Navigating narrow, slippery staircases while clutching this unpleasant burden feels like a grotesque ritual. Rome's streets are hardly a better alternative. Passers-by regularly dodge filth, tossed carelessly from upper-floor windows, adding a disgusting lottery to your daily commute. Historical accounts from satirists confirm these unpleasant realities were commonplace rather than exaggerated tales. A faint aroma of bread wafts from bakeries below, mingling distressingly with the stench of human waste, damp stone and sweat. The dawn chorus isn't birdsong but shouts from vendors hawking pungent fish sauces, spices, and questionable meats, all forming a vivid and unforgettable morning symphony. Rome's public latrines present an awkward spectacle rather than a relief. Stone benches line the walls, each seat openly facing others without even the slightest privacy barrier. Entering one feels akin to joining an uncomfortable social club, where small talk mingles absurdly with bodily functions. Ancient sites like Ostia confirm such communal arrangements were widespread, accommodating large groups seated side by side. Patrons discuss politics, exchange gossip, and carry on conversations while maintaining uneasy eye contact. There's no shame here, just practical Roman efficiency taken to the extreme. A pervasive smell hangs in the air, blending human waste, vinegar-soaked sponges and sweat. You resign yourself to this bizarre ritual, understanding that avoiding it risks the wrath of local authorities or divine punishment. A powerful motivator indeed. The infamous tessorium, a shared sponge fixed to a stick and soaking in vinegar, represents Roman hygiene at its most cringe-worthy. Ostensibly rinsed after each use, this unsettling tool is passed casually from one patron to another, eliminating even the slightest pretense of sanitation or personal dignity. Historical sources, such as Seneca, acknowledge its widespread usage, confirming this unhygienic nightmare was indeed part of daily life. Wealthier Romans might privately recoil at such indignities, but common citizens accept this as routine. If fortunate, you bring a scrap of cloth or moss instead. Sparing yourself at least partial humiliation, Roman pragmatism triumphs over squeamishness as society shrugs off these grotesque arrangements without second thought. Each reluctant wipe underscores your grim reality. Sanitation here is simply survival, never luxury. Public sanitation laws in Rome aim to curb the rampant filth flooding its narrow streets. Urinating or defecating openly in public is strictly forbidden, punishable by steep fines or even physical punishment. Historical anecdotes describe severe penalties. Emperor Caracolla reportedly executed offenders caught disrespecting statues with their bodily functions, highlighting the city's harsh intolerance of such misbehavior. Even divine retribution was invoked through inscribed warnings near monuments dedicated to gods like Mars. With minimal alternatives, ordinary citizens grudgingly rely on the communal latrines despite their lack of privacy or hygiene. Post-toilet washing involves nothing more than shared water basins, themselves potential vectors for disease transmission, lacking soap or disinfectants. Each visit reminds you harshly how Roman civilization balances strict rules with appalling reality. Roman breakfasts, called intaculum, fall far short of modern appetizing standards. Typically, your morning meal consists of little more than day-old bread accompanied by watery, diluted wine. Nutritional value is minimal at best, meant solely to stave off hunger briefly. Absent from your menu are staples that modern tastes would crave: coffee, sugar, tomatoes, or even potatoes, since these New World imports remain undiscovered. Instead, gritty, rock-infused bread dominates your diet, slowly grinding down teeth over time. Archaeologists studying Roman remains regularly find severely worn-down teeth as silent testament to this dietary hardship. Occasionally, a morsel of salty cheese or dried olives brightens the dreary monotony, but luxuries such as street-sold pastries remain firmly beyond financial reach. Breakfast provides sustenance, never enjoyment. Food vendors bustling through Rome's streets offer tantalizing smells: chickpea fritters, sweet pastries, and warm bread. But these delights remain cruelly unattainable for most impoverished citizens. Prices remain prohibitive, forcing you to cling to dry bread and thin wine consumed hastily on street corners or by public fountains alongside fellow workers. On rare fortunate days, a drizzle of olive oil or garum, that pungent fish sauce ubiquitous in Roman cuisine, enhances your humble bread. The distinctive scent of garum alone could overwhelm unaccustomed nostrils. Yet for Romans, this potent sauce symbolizes culinary identity. Street vendors' wares vividly contrast your meager provisions, serving as a daily reminder of Rome's stark economic divides. Your reality remains mundane, a diet designed not for pleasure, but to barely sustain energy for the day's grueling labor. Workdays in Rome begin at first light, when overseers relentlessly demand efficiency from laborers like yourself. Tardiness or inefficiency invites punishment or docked wages. Professions such as bricklaying, street cleaning, and construction dominate working-class lives, performed under scorching heat or freezing rain without protective gear or concern for safety. Historical accounts verify such harsh conditions, underscoring Rome's indifference to workers' well-being. Injuries, fractured bones, dislocated joints, infected cuts, occur regularly, yet stopping to tend wounds risks dismissal. Foremen drive their crews mercilessly, demanding constant progress on monumental projects like aqueducts, roads, and temples. Those in skilled trades fare only slightly better, with fierce competition keeping earnings perilously low. Rome's prosperity rests squarely upon your exhaustion and sacrifice. Craftsmen and merchants laboring within Rome's economic fabric endure perpetual struggle as intense market competition depresses prices and profits significantly. Hundreds of similar artisans sell identical pottery, clothing, and goods, diluting any chance of meaningful success. A merchant's reputation is fragile. Social standing or wealthy patronage outweighs product quality, making survival precarious. White-collar workers, like messengers dodging chaotic traffic or accountants overlooked by clients, similarly face grim realities. Even educators suffer disrespect, tutoring entitled youths uninterested in Latin grammar or rhetoric. Women experience particularly harsh employment conditions, juggling childcare, household tasks, and market selling simultaneously defines their daily routine. Roman society provides no support for working mothers, no maternity leave or childcare, forcing constant multitasking under immense pressure. Roman streets burst with ceaseless activity, alive with merchants shouting, carts rumbling recklessly, and stray animals wandering freely. Navigating this chaos requires quick reflexes, as the slightest distraction could lead to injury from speeding wagons or aggressive livestock. Daily commutes feel like traversing an obstacle course, complete with pickpockets lurking among the dense crowds and beggars clamoring for spare coins. Even crossing streets presents mortal danger, with no crosswalks or safety barriers. Pedestrians must dart through traffic, risking their lives at every step. Rome's infrastructure is impressive yet dangerous, engineered without consideration for human safety or comfort. The city's vibrancy masks an underlying brutality, constantly reminding you that survival depends on vigilance, agility, and luck more than any official protections or civilized amenities. Rome's famed roads, though engineering marvels, overflow with filth due to inadequate drainage and sanitation. The central gutters function as open sewers, teeming with human waste, rotting garbage, and spilled goods from bustling markets. Every rainfall turns streets into foul streams, forcing residents to hop precariously along raised walkways or stepping stones placed intermittently to navigate safely. Missteps mean plunging feet first into sludge, a revolting yet common occurrence for unwary travellers. Historians confirm these unsanitary conditions prevailed despite Rome's celebrated aqueducts and public sanitation systems, which often failed to keep pace with the swelling population's needs. Residents learn quickly to tolerate pervasive odours, viewing them as an unpleasant but unavoidable part of urban existence, underscoring Rome's harsh daily realities. Heavy traffic congests Rome's narrow lanes, filled with hand-pushed carts, animal-drawn wagons, and wealthy Romans travelling leisurely in litters carried by slaves. Though large wagons are banned during daylight hours to reduce congestion, smaller vehicles and litters still dominate streets, posing constant danger to pedestrians. The city's busy thoroughfares offer no designated crossings, traffic signals, or enforced regulations, leaving citizens to negotiate paths at their own peril. Injuries from collisions with carts or trampled by livestock are frequent and rarely receive legal redress. Ancient writings humorously note Rome's chaotic street life, portraying it as a wild, uncontrolled environment. The wealthy, shielded within luxurious litters, remain indifferent to the struggles of ordinary citizens who dodge danger daily simply trying to cross the street. Rome's air quality is notoriously poor, thick with smoke rising from countless cooking fires, furnaces, and artisan workshops. For citizens residing in the densely populated urban centre, breathing itself poses health risks. Historical sources highlight persistent air pollution, noting how smoke combined with the pervasive odours from temples' incense. Markets spoiled goods and streets human waste to form an ever-present toxic haze. The city lacks any effective measures for managing air quality, leaving residents to suffer respiratory issues regularly. Even outdoors, citizens endure air heavy with soot, dust, and foul smells, affecting both health and daily comfort. Chronic coughing, irritated eyes, and constant throat discomfort become familiar burdens, silently endured as unavoidable parts of urban existence. Reflecting the hidden price paid for Rome's prosperity, Rome's crowded streets are frequently littered with dead animals, left unattended until decomposition or scavengers remove them. Carcasses of dogs, pigs, and even chickens commonly obstruct paths, ignored due to the city's overwhelmed sanitation services. Historical records suggest Romans accepted these gruesome sights with resignation, treating them as unfortunate yet routine inconveniences. Passers-by sometimes cover smaller bodies with cloaks or debris, concealing rather than properly disposing of them. Such unsanitary practices contribute to Rome's pervasive odor, fostering disease and discomfort. The city's scale makes prompt disposal impossible, forcing residents to adapt to the constant presence of decay. Romans navigate this grotesque landscape daily, underscoring how the metropolis balances advanced civilization with distressing sanitary neglect. In Rome, pedestrians must remain alert not only for ground-level hazards, but also for dangers raining from above. Residents in upper floors of insulae frequently empty chamber pots and garbage directly onto the streets below, shouting warnings, often too late for unsuspecting passers-by. The Latin equivalent of "watch out" becomes a familiar cry, though ineffective in preventing countless unpleasant incidents. Historical anecdotes recount incidents of unfortunate pedestrians drenched in refuse, a common risk for anyone traversing Rome's narrow alleys. Emperor Vespasian famously taxed urine collected from public toilets, highlighting the pragmatic yet unappealing Roman approach to waste management. Such conditions illustrate daily life's unpredictable indignities, as citizens constantly navigate the threat of filth descending unexpectedly from windows above. Rome's sophisticated aqueducts deliver vast quantities of fresh water into the city, supplying numerous public fountains, baths, and private households. Constructed with precise engineering, these structures transport water over significant distances, demonstrating Rome's advanced technical skills. Historical records boast that Rome's water supply rivaled Egypt's Nile, showcasing impressive public infrastructure. Nevertheless, ordinary citizens rely mostly on communal fountains shared by thousands, leading to inevitable contamination. Despite abundant water, hygiene remains compromised by widespread misuse. Laundry and animals frequently share fountain basins intended for human drinking. Romans' distrust of public water leads many to prefer diluted wine as a safer beverage, reflecting deep skepticism about sanitation despite advanced engineering. Thus, plentiful water paradoxically fails to guarantee cleanliness or health. Public baths, central to Roman social life, offer citizens essential relief from grime yet harbour questionable cleanliness. Bathers share large communal pools, often soaking in water already dirtied by numerous previous users. Romans lack soap, instead relying on metal scrapers known as strigils to remove dirt, sweat, and oils from skin, a practice ineffective against bacteria. Baths function more as social gathering spaces than hygienic sanctuaries, with loud conversations, business deals, and even vendors operating amid nude bathers. Wealthier Romans might employ private baths, avoiding communal hazards, but average citizens tolerate the discomforts inherent in public facilities. Bathwater circulates through multiple pools without modern sanitation methods, essentially recycling contamination. Historians confirm baths' social value outweighed hygiene concerns, illustrating Rome's complex relationship with cleanliness. Roman medical practices, primitive by modern standards, offer minimal comfort for injuries or illnesses. Pain management is rudimentary, anesthesia remains unknown, and even severe wounds receive treatment without meaningful pain relief. Surgeries occur while patients remain fully conscious, biting on leather or wood to endure agony. Historical accounts describe Roman surgeons wielding instruments resembling modern scalpels and forceps, performing procedures lacking antiseptic precautions. Infection frequently follows surgeries, often proving fatal despite initial success. Stoicism heavily influences Roman attitudes towards suffering. Expressing pain openly invites social ridicule. Medical care, dominated by the flawed theory of balancing bodily humors, frequently involves harsh treatments such as bloodletting or induced vomiting, compounding patient misery. Surviving Roman medicine becomes a matter of endurance, luck, and resilience. Roman healthcare relies heavily on traditional remedies, blending practical treatments with superstition. Doctors prescribe herbal concoctions and peculiar animal-based remedies, reflecting a belief system mixing science and folklore. Honey, garlic, and willow bark demonstrate genuine medicinal properties, yet Roman physicians often incorporate bizarre ingredients like animal dung or crushed insects. Historical sources like Pliny the Elder document numerous unconventional remedies, such as wearing dead animals as amulets or consuming foul mixtures intended as cures. Temple incubation, where patients sleep overnight hoping for divine healing dreams, provides another popular treatment method. These varied approaches illustrate Rome's eclectic medical landscape, merging empirical observation with mystical beliefs. Despite such attempts, the absence of germ theory means most treatments provide minimal genuine relief, leaving patients' health largely subject to chance. Roman medical theory revolves heavily around the concept of balancing four bodily fluids: blood, phlegm, black bile, and yellow bile. Physicians attribute virtually every illness, from minor colds to chronic disease, to an imbalance among these humors. Treatments frequently involve painful bloodletting, vigorous purging, or induced vomiting, intended to restore equilibrium. Though logically consistent, this misguided approach often weakens patients, exacerbating existing conditions rather than alleviating them. Historical texts by physicians like Galen detail elaborate, yet largely ineffective, treatments rooted in these beliefs. Romans endure considerable suffering under this medical model, trusting in methods now recognized as fundamentally flawed. Roman doctors frequently prescribe bizarre, even disgusting remedies to cure illness, relying heavily on folklore rather than scientific reasoning. Treatments often involve ingredients like crushed animal dung urine or dried insects mixed into potions. Pliny the Elder documented countless strange prescriptions, such as using ground mouse liver or snake skins, indicating how widespread these superstitious practices were. Patients desperate for relief willingly try these dubious concoctions, convinced of their healing power. Modern analysis reveals minimal medicinal value in most of these remedies, suggesting any improvements were coincidental rather than intentional. Thus, Romans endure discomfort and risk serious harm from their own medical traditions. Despite advanced engineering and infrastructure, Roman life expectancy remains startlingly low, averaging just around 25-35 years due to widespread disease and inadequate healthcare. Child mortality rates soar, with historical estimates indicating nearly half of all Roman children die before reaching adulthood. Common ailments such as dysentery, malaria, and respiratory infections devastate densely populated urban centers like Rome itself. Even affluent Romans suffer from diseases exacerbated by poor sanitation, limited nutritional understanding, and ineffective medical treatments. Tomb inscriptions and skeletal remains unearthed by archaeologists vividly demonstrate Rome's harsh reality, highlighting a grim contrast between Rome's technological achievements and its medical failures. Meals for average Romans primarily consist of simple grain-based dishes, frequently a bland porridge or thick gruel flavored minimally with herbs. Fresh meat rarely appears on the plates of ordinary citizens, reserved mostly for special occasions or religious festivals. Wealthier Romans, conversely, indulge daily in luxurious dishes featuring exotic meats, imported spices, and elaborate sauces. Archaeological finds reveal discarded shells from oysters and bones from exotic animals at lavish villas, sharply contrasting the monotonous diets of common Romans. Bread, olives, and legumes sustain most Romans, providing essential nourishment yet offering little culinary satisfaction, underlining stark social disparities reflected clearly through dietary differences. Bread serves as a dietary cornerstone across Roman society, yet carries significant hazards due to frequent contamination with grit or small stone fragments from millstones. Bakers commonly mix sand or chalk deliberately into dough to increase volume and weight deceptively, risking consumers' dental health. Archaeological evidence consistently reveals severe dental wear among Roman skeletons, attributed largely to abrasive bread consumption. Such chronic damage often leads to agonizing infections and abscesses, increasing vulnerability to systemic illness. Despite knowing these risks, Romans lack practical alternatives, relying heavily on this compromised staple. The daily act of eating thus becomes a grim negotiation between necessary sustenance and inevitable physical harm. Roman cuisine heavily incorporates garum, an intensely flavored sauce produced from fermented fish guts and salt, enjoyed universally across social classes. Garum factories dot coastal regions, notably Bailo Claudia in Spain, exporting this pungent condiment empire-wide in large clay amphorae. Its overpowering aroma might repel modern palates, yet Romans eagerly consume it, often seasoning nearly every dish from simple bread to elaborate feasts. Garum's ubiquity reflects Roman culinary preferences for strong, salty flavors, masking unpleasant tastes from preserved foods or stale ingredients. Ancient texts repeatedly praise its versatility and purported health benefits, underscoring how deeply this distinctive condiment influences Roman dining habits and food culture. Public spectacles dominate Roman entertainment, attracting massive audiences to arenas for brutal gladiatorial combat. The Colosseum alone seats up to 50,000 spectators, vividly demonstrating Rome's insatiable demand for violent amusement. Gladiators, mostly slaves, prisoners of war, or criminals, engage in vicious duels, fighting until severe injury or death. Historical records recount extravagant games lasting weeks, featuring hundreds of combatants and thousands of slaughtered animals. Spectators enthusiastically cheer bloodshed, driven by morbid fascination and desensitization to human suffering. Such cruelty, normalized by relentless exposure, provides disturbing insight into Roman psychology and social values, highlighting the dark undercurrents beneath Rome's celebrated civilization. Beyond gladiator matches, Roman crowds revel in savage spectacles involving captured wild animals, elephants, lions, bears, and more, battling to the death in gruesome staged hunts. Authorities import beasts from distant provinces like North Africa and Asia, proudly displaying Rome's expansive territorial reach and exotic wealth. Historical accounts vividly depict elaborate hunts within arenas, sometimes deliberately pitting animals against human combatants in unequal struggles. Thousands of animals perish annually, underscoring Rome's disregard for wildlife and the environment. These public displays reinforce imperial dominance, subtly reminding citizens of Rome's power over nature and highlighting societal tolerance, even enthusiastic endorsement of extreme violence as entertainment. Roman theatrical performances provide a lighter form of public entertainment compared to violent arena spectacles, yet remain rooted firmly in crude humor and slapstick comedy. Plays often feature exaggerated characters, lewd jokes, and physical comedy designed explicitly for widespread appeal among common Romans. Ancient playwrights like Plautus and Terence craft narratives filled with humorous misunderstandings, bawdy innuendo, and stereotyped figures mocking various social roles. Audiences relish these comedic portrayals, temporarily escaping daily hardships through laughter and entertainment. Despite their crude style, these plays subtly comment on Roman society, poking fun at human follies while reinforcing shared cultural values and experiences among diverse audience members. Chariot racing enthralls Roman audiences, taking place at vast racetracks like the Circus Maximus, which accommodates approximately 150,000 spectators. Drivers fiercely compete in high-speed contests, maneuvering fragile chariots pulled by powerful horses around sharp turns at dangerous velocities. Frequent crashes result in catastrophic injuries or deaths, dramatically heightening audience excitement. Successful charioteers gain celebrity status comparable to modern sports stars, amassing immense wealth and devoted fan followings. Historical records document intense rivalries between competing racing factions, whose fervent supporters sometimes erupt violently into street riots. Rome's obsession with these races illustrates a passion for thrilling spectacle, blending admiration for bravery with the thrill of witnessing mortal peril firsthand. While gladiators may garner admiration, it's the charioteers who truly capture the Roman public's adoration. These daring racers, often of humble origin, can achieve fame and fortunes rivaling senators. The Circus Maximus roars with support for teams, reds, blues, greens, and whites, each with fiercely loyal fans. Rivalries between factions spark intense street violence, with brawls and property damage not uncommon. Some charioteers earn thousands of denarii per race, far exceeding the pay of legionnaires. For the common Roman, these races offer both communal pride and a rare chance to dream of social mobility, where skill behind the reins could elevate even a slave-born man into the annals of Roman celebrity. Rome's streets also host informal performances, jugglers, musicians, fortune-tellers, and street philosophers offering debates for a coin. These everyday entertainments, while less grand than arena spectacles, are essential to Roman city life. Crowds gather around snake charmers or acrobats balancing atop stools, marveling at their skill. Wandering cynics and stoics philosophize loudly in public squares, inviting argument or applause. Some performers barely earn enough to eat, yet the bustling public spaces keep them returning day after day. These distractions provide more than amusement. They reflect the vibrant noise and pulse of a society constantly in motion, seeking relief from its daily grind. Rome's policy of bread and circuses reflects a calculated effort to control the masses through distraction and provision. The government distributes free grain to eligible citizens, easing hunger and tempering unrest. Simultaneously, Massive public spectacles entertain and pacify the population, ensuring that dissatisfaction with living conditions or politics doesn't erupt into revolt. Emperors like Augustus and Trajan masterfully wield this tactic, funding lavish games and festivals to curry public favor. While elites see such programs as charity or clever manipulation, for the poor they represent survival. Entertainment in Rome isn't just recreation, it's political strategy disguised as fun. Justice in Rome is far from fair. Legal outcomes depend largely on your social class and wealth. The powerful manipulate laws with ease, while the poor face brutal punishments for minor offences. Trials often become public spectacles, with audiences jeering or cheering as defendants plead their cases. Judges and magistrates, swayed by bribes or favoritism, deliver verdicts reflecting influence more than truth. Some citizens resort to hiring orators to perform persuasive speeches on their behalf, regardless of guilt. For commoners, the law offers little protection. It looms instead as an unpredictable threat, reminding them daily that power, not principle, rules the courts of Rome. Punishments in Rome are shockingly harsh. Petty theft may earn a flogging, repeat offenders might face branding, dismemberment, or even crucifixion. Slaves suffer particularly cruel fates, often executed for their master's misfortunes. Crucifixions line roads as a grim warning to others. Citizens have more rights, yet even they risk exile or torture under imperial rule. Execution methods are often theatrical. Being thrown to wild animals or burned alive serves not only as punishment but as public spectacle. These brutal measures reflect a society deeply invested in fear as a tool for order. Justice, for most, is painful and public. Despite Rome's size, policing is minimal. The city has no formal police force as we understand it today. Instead, a loosely organized group called the cohortes urbanae patrols major streets during the day, while the vigils handle fire watching and some night patrols. However, both groups are small and under-resourced. After dark, neighborhoods fall under informal self-policing or gang control. Robbery, assault, and even murder flourish in the shadows, especially in poorer districts. With no emergency number to call and justice slow or corrupt, citizens rely on luck, vigilance, or private security, if they can afford it, to feel any semblance of safety. Nightfall in Rome transforms the city into a realm of danger and uncertainty. Oil lamps flicker weakly, casting long shadows across alleyways, while the wealthy retreat behind locked gates and guarded homes. For the poor, it's a gamble. Stay inside and risk collapsing ceilings or fires, or step outside and face the lurking threats of thieves or drunken gangs. Crimes peak under cover of darkness, and with no streetlights or regular patrols, even shouting for help proves useless. Rome's vibrant daytime bustle gives way to a tense silence broken only by the occasional scream or drunken brawl. Night is not for wandering, it's for surviving. Fires pose one of the greatest threats to Roman urban life. Insula built of wood and tightly packed create the perfect storm for disaster. A single overturned oil lamp or an unattended brazier can ignite entire blocks. The Great Fire of Rome in 64 CE, which Emperor Nero controversially blamed on Christians, illustrates the devastation such blazes cause. The vigils attempt to respond with buckets and pumps, but their efforts are often too little, too late. Firefighting remains rudimentary, with residents relying mostly on sheer luck and neighbours' help. Entire families perish in sudden night fires, their stories lost among ashes and charred beams. The noise of the Roman night is relentless drunken shouting, dogs barking, carts clattering through streets, and neighbours arguing through thin walls. Sleep, for most, is a luxury stolen in moments of relative quiet. Tenement dwellers in insulae endure everything from leaky roofs to bedbugs and vermin, all while trying to rest for another grueling day. There's no insulation, no privacy, just a communal wall of sound and discomfort. For the average Roman, rest isn't restorative, it's interrupted, shallow, and often more exhausting than helpful. Fatigue becomes part of life, woven into the fabric of surviving Rome's urban existence. Rats and vermin are constant, unwelcome roommates in Roman tenements. Crumbs, chamber pots, and open food attract hordes of pests. Rats, lice, fleas, and cockroaches, with no effective pest control. These creatures breed freely in walls, straw bedding, and sewer channels beneath the floors. Flea bites and rat droppings spread disease, yet residents have little choice but to coexist. Wealthier Romans might employ cats or servants to handle infestations, but for the poor, these problems remain daily irritants. Sleep interrupted by scurrying in the dark or bites that raise welts is common. In Rome, even when the day's chaos ends, the night continues its torment. In the cramped confines of Rome's insulae, privacy doesn't exist. Every cough, argument, or cry echoes through paper-thin walls, turning neighbours into involuntary witnesses to each other's lives. Family disputes spill into hallways, and the sounds of meals, illness, or intimacy fill shared spaces. Many residents share a single room with extended family, sleeping head to toe on scratchy mats. Space is so limited that belongings hang from walls or ceilings to make room. Children play in stairwells or alleys, constantly underfoot. These buildings aren't homes in the cozy sense. They're survival units stacked precariously on top of each other, always one spark or collapse away from tragedy. Water, though plentiful thanks to Rome's aqueducts, still poses a challenge for the poor. They don't have private access and must fetch it daily from communal fountains, often waiting in long lines beneath a hot sun. Buckets are heavy, and any spilled water means another exhausting trip. Fountains, though engineered marvels, often become crowded, noisy hubs where tempers flare. Some residents even bribe others to fetch water for them. While wealthy villas enjoy indoor plumbing and private baths, the average citizen must haul every drop for drinking, washing, and cooking. For the poor, access to water isn't a convenience, it's a daily chore, essential and burdensome. Laundry in Rome is its own ordeal. Poor citizens either scrub garments at public fountains or rely on phalonica, Roman laundromats operated by professionals. However, these aren't the gentle, soap-scented places you might imagine. Fullers clean clothes using vats filled with stale urine, collected in jars placed along streets. The ammonia in the urine acts as a cleaning agent, breaking down stains and grime. Workers stomp garments barefoot in these foul-smelling mixtures before rinsing them out. Though effective, the process leaves a lingering odour. While your tunic may look clean, it comes with a scent that no perfume can fully mask. Freshness, Roman style, has its limits. For the lower classes, education is a distant luxury. Boys from wealthy families attend schools or study under private tutors, learning Latin, Greek, rhetoric, and law. Meanwhile, poor children begin working at a young age, helping with family businesses, fetching water, or running errands. Girls, regardless of class, are often taught domestic skills, sewing, cooking, managing a household. Literacy is rare among the poor, and books are expensive, hand-copied scrolls. Knowledge travels by word-of-mouth stories, gossip, or public readings. Intellectual life belongs to the elite, while the rest of the city learns from experience, struggle, and the occasional warning shouted in the marketplace. Religious life in Rome is woven into every corner of public and private existence. Shrines to household gods, lairs and penates, stand in kitchens where daily offerings of wine, bread or incense are made. Each home, no matter how humble, reserves a space for honoring these spirits. In the streets, temples to Jupiter, Mars, and Venus attract worshippers offering sacrifices, seeking blessings for health, love, or military success. Religion isn't just spiritual, it's deeply political. Emperors deify themselves or predecessors, expecting loyalty not just as rulers, but as semi-divine figures. To be Roman is to perform your rites, pay respect to the gods, and stay in their elusive favor, or suffer the consequences. Festivals provide brief escapes from Rome's hardships. Days of celebration see shops close, wine flow freely, and citizens parade through streets in masks or outlandish costumes. Saturnalia, the most popular festival, turns society upside down. Slaves dine like masters, gifts are exchanged, and public gambling is permitted. These events are raucous, loud, and often chaotic. While the wealthy host elaborate banquets, the poor flood streets to sing, dance, and drink cheap wine. Order momentarily dissolves under the thrill of collective release. For a few precious hours, laughter replaces labor, and even the harshest lives feel light. These holidays remind citizens that Rome knows how to entertain, even as it oppresses. Marriage in Rome is less about love and more about alliance, status, and producing heirs. Wealthy families arrange unions for political or financial gain, sometimes marrying off daughters as young as 12. The ceremony is symbolic. The bride dons a flame-colored veil, touches fire and water, and joins her husband under the witness of gods. For poorer Romans, marriage is more informal, often a matter of cohabitation and mutual agreement. Divorce is surprisingly easy and common, especially for the elite. Roman women, though restricted in many ways, can own property, initiate divorce, and run businesses. Still, societal expectations tether them to the home, motherhood, and modesty. Infant mortality in ancient Rome is heartbreakingly high. Nearly half of all children die before the age of 10, with many not surviving their first year. Poor sanitation, limited medical knowledge, and frequent infections take a heavy toll. Families often avoid naming infants until they've survived several weeks. Shrines to deities like Juno, Lucina, and Diana are filled with prayers and offerings from desperate mothers. Despite the odds, children bring joy, hope, and legacy. They play with toys made of clay or wood, mimic their parents' work, and participate in household rituals. For the Roman poor, each child is both a blessing and a gamble against the merciless conditions of their world. Life for Roman women depends greatly on class. Elite women enjoy relative comfort and education, but live under constant surveillance, expected to be modest, obedient, and produce heirs. They manage households, supervise slaves, and occasionally influence politics behind the scenes. Poorer women face harsher realities. They labor in markets, raise children in cramped quarters, and sometimes sell their bodies to survive. Yet Roman women aren't passive. Some become business owners, priestesses, or even influential figures through sheer determination. Despite the patriarchy, many navigate their world with resilience, carving spaces of autonomy within a system designed to silence them. Slavery permeates every layer of Roman life. Slaves cook meals, raise children, build monuments, and serve in both public and private roles. They have no legal rights and can be bought, sold, punished, or freed at their master's whim. Some are captured in war, others born into bondage. While a few earn freedom and rise in society, most endure harsh labor and brutal treatment. Educated slaves may become tutors or secretaries, Others work mines or mills in horrific conditions. Rome's prosperity relies on this massive, invisible workforce. Yet in public, slaves remain silent, their suffering overlooked. Just another cog in the empire's relentless machine. Freed slaves, known as liberti, walk a strange path in Roman society. Though no longer property, they remain tied to their former masters by duty and gratitude. Many continue working for their patrons, managing businesses or overseeing estates. Some amass wealth, especially in trades, but social stigma lingers. Elite circles rarely welcome them, despite their contributions to the economy. Freedmen can marry, own property, and even pass on citizenship to their children, but their past shadows every achievement. Statues and tomb inscriptions often show their pride in freedom, hard-won and never taken lightly. In Rome, liberty is a ladder few climb, and fewer still escape judgment once they do. Rome's economy runs on trade conquest and the tireless labour of its lower classes. Goods flow through bustling markets: olive oil from Spain, spices from India, grain from Egypt. The forum hums with buyers, sellers, hagglers and scammers. Merchant stalls cram the streets, shouting deals over one another, while pickpockets work the crowd. Most Romans live hand to mouth. Cobblers, blacksmiths, fishmongers, scraping by through relentless work. Taxes burden even the modestly successful. Meanwhile, aristocrats grow richer off land and slaves. The wealth gap is immense, and upward mobility, though possible, is rare. For many, survival is victory. Anything more feels like a miracle. At Rome's core is the forum, not just a marketplace but the beating heart of politics, gossip and daily life. Senators debate in its halls. Orators address crowds from stone platforms, and news spreads by word of mouth or posted edicts. It's where trials take place, fortunes are made, and rumours bloom. Marble temples and government buildings loom over chaotic stalls and food vendors. Philosophers preach stoicism beside merchants hawking olives. Everyone passes through, the elite in purple-trimmed togas, slaves with baskets, soldiers on leave. The forum isn't orderly, it's vibrant, alive, messy, a microcosm of Rome's brilliance and contradictions on full display. Public toilets in Rome, called latrinae, are communal, often lined with stone seats and no dividers. Men and women squat side by side, engaging in casual conversation while relieving themselves. A shallow trough of water flows beneath, carrying away waste. For wiping, users dip a shared sponge on a stick, the infamous tessorium, into salt water before use. Sanitary. Not by modern standards. Disease spreads easily and smells are unbearable. Yet for Romans, this setup is normal, functional and social. Some even carve graffiti into the walls, leaving behind crude jokes or complaints. In Rome, even bodily functions become a shared, if grimy, civic experience. Travel across the Roman Empire is surprisingly efficient, if you can afford it. An extensive network of roads stretches over 250,000 miles, built with layered stone and engineered for durability. Messengers and military units move swiftly along these routes, aided by rest stops and inns. For civilians, however, travel remains arduous. Roads are dusty or muddy, inns are often filthy, and bandits lurk beyond city borders. Wealthy travellers use litters or carriages, the poor walk or hitch rides on carts. Sea travel offers faster passage, but brings storms, piracy, and seasickness. Journeys require patience, courage, and coin, and sometimes divine protection from Mercury himself. Despite the dangers, Romans are remarkably mobile. Soldiers, traders, entertainers, and pilgrims traverse the empire constantly. A soldier from Gaul might end up guarding a border in Syria. A spice merchant from Egypt could settle in Naples. The empire's reach means that cultures, languages and goods intermingle freely. Temples to Eastern gods appear in Western provinces, while Roman baths sprout in distant corners of Britannia. Citizens boast of having seen the world, or at least the empire. Movement fosters identity. To be Roman is to be connected, not just by law or language, but by shared roads, rituals, and imperial order stretching across continents. Letters and messages travel surprisingly well across Rome's sprawling lands. Couriers on horseback carry scrolls stamped with wax seals, often riding for days through rain or heat. Government messages move fastest, using relays of fresh horses stationed at intervals along major roads. Private correspondence takes longer and costs more, but allows friends, lovers, and merchants to stay connected across provinces. Literacy, though limited, empowers the few who can write to shape opinions or plead for favors. In a world without phones or internet, a single scroll carries emotion, authority, or instruction. And when news finally arrives, it's read aloud, passed hand to hand, and argued about in the forum. Civic pride defines much of Roman identity. Even poor citizens boast of being Roman, participants in a grand civilization that brought order, roads, and laws to a chaotic world. Public works like aqueducts and baths aren't just conveniences, they symbolize Roman greatness. Insults against the empire spark outrage, even among the struggling masses. Veterans hang their helmets with pride, merchants display imperial coins like badges of honor. The empire is flawed, even brutal, but it's theirs. To be Roman is to belong to something mighty, to walk streets paved by history, and to believe, despite hardship, that they are part of something eternal. The idea of Rome as eternal, Roma Eterna, echoes through its architecture, coins, and poetry. Emperors build colossal monuments not just to themselves, but to the glory of Rome. The Colosseum, triumphal arches, and marble forums serve as constant reminders of power and permanence. Even when facing plagues, fires, or invasions, citizens believe Rome will endure. Writers like Virgil and Livy weave national myths into epic tales, grounding the empire in divine fate. This belief fuels ambition and resilience. Rome may crumble in parts, but the idea of Rome, a world of order, gods, and glory, remains unshaken in the Roman heart. Still, beneath the marble and grandeur lies anxiety. Romans fear disorder, rebellion, famine, and the wrath of displeased gods. Omens are taken seriously. An eclipse, a deformed animal birth, or a lightning strike sparks concern in senate and street alike. Soothsayers and augurs interpret signs, consulted before battles or political decisions. Citizens cling to rituals to maintain balance with the divine, fearing that one misstep might invite ruin. Temples bustle with offerings, not just from faith, but from fear. Rome thrives on power, yes, but also on superstition. Beneath its confident exterior, the empire tiptoes nervously around the will of the unseen. Religion in Rome is transactional. You give to the gods, and they protect you in return. Daily offerings, festival sacrifices, and temple visits are less about devotion and more about securing divine favor. Romans pray before journeys, thank the gods for victories, and consult omens before big decisions. Neglecting a ritual is dangerous. Misfortune is often blamed on someone's failure to appease the divine. Even emperors participate publicly to show piety. Religion blends seamlessly into politics and family life. Every act, from marriage to farming, is tied to ritual. In a world of uncertainty, the gods offer structure, so long as you don't forget your end of the bargain. The Roman Pantheon is vast and ever-expanding. Jupiter rules as king of the gods, with Mars commanding war, Venus overseeing love, and Neptune governing the sea. But Rome doesn't stop at its own deities. Conquered regions bring their gods too. Isis from Egypt, Mithras from Persia, and Cybele from Asia Minor all find followers in the empire. This religious tolerance isn't kindness, it's policy. Rome absorbs foreign cults to maintain peace, hoping that honoring local gods will prevent rebellion. Still, some faiths, like early Christianity, are seen as dangerous for rejecting Rome's divine hierarchy. Worship in Rome is a careful balance between inclusion, tradition, and political control. Christianity begins quietly in Rome, whispered among slaves, foreigners, and the poor. Its message of equality under one God threatens the Roman system, which depends on hierarchy and loyalty to the emperor. Refusing to sacrifice to Roman gods is seen not just as heresy but treason. Early Christians meet in secret, fearing arrest, torture, or execution. Nero famously blames them for the Great Fire, burning many alive as public punishment. Yet persecution only strengthens the faith's appeal. Stories of martyrs spread, inspiring others. Christianity survives underground, carried by courage and conviction, until centuries later. It emerges from the shadows, forever changing the empire that once tried to crush it. Death is everywhere in Rome, on the battlefield, in the streets, or inside smoke-filled tenements. Romans honor the dead with tombs, inscriptions, and yearly festivals like Parentalia, where families visit graves with offerings of food and wine. Ghosts or manes are believed to linger if not properly honored. Funerals range from humble to extravagant. The rich parade the deceased's ancestors in masks, flaunting lineage. The poor bury loved ones quickly, sometimes in shared pits outside city walls. Yet, even in death, status matters. A well-carved tombstone says you were someone. And in Rome, being remembered is the closest thing there is to immortality. The Roman calendar is packed with festivals, from Lupercalia's wild rituals to the solemn rites of Lemuria, where families banish restless spirits by tossing black beans in silence. Each month has sacred days, market days, and fasts, making time feel like a constant cycle of ritual and celebration. Emperors add holidays to honor themselves, filling the year with parades, games, and sacrifices. For many, these breaks offer welcome relief from labor. Children memorize feast days as eagerly as modern kids await birthdays. Religion shapes the rhythm of Roman life, not just belief, but when to rest, party, and plead with gods to keep the world spinning. Rome's military is the backbone of its power and identity. Young men dream of earning a place in the legions, where service offers pay, glory, and eventually land or citizenship. Soldiers train relentlessly, marching long distances, drilling with weighted weapons, and learning to build fortifications. Discipline is harsh, with punishment swift and public, yet camaraderie runs deep. Legionaries fight as a unit, sleep in tents together, and trust one another with their lives. Campaigns last years, often far from home, and veterans return either as honored citizens or broken men. The Roman soldier is both tool and symbol of empire, disciplined, loyal, and always marching forward. War brings Rome wealth, but at a cost. Conquests flood the empire with slaves, gold, and resources, yet leave behind wreckage, resentment, and restless provinces. Entire cultures are erased or assimilated. Cities like Carthage are razed, their populations enslaved. Resistance is met with brutal force. But Rome also builds roads, baths, and forums in conquered lands, blending destruction with infrastructure. Some embrace Roman life for its order and opportunity. Others resent the taxes, soldiers, and cultural erasure. Peace, Pax Romana, comes not from goodwill, but exhaustion and dominance. Rome's borders are painted with both triumph and blood. The empire stretches across 3 continents, But managing it is no easy feat. Governors are appointed to oversee provinces, collect taxes, and maintain order, often enriching themselves along the way. Corruption is common, and revolts flare when oppression goes too far. Communication lags mean decisions from Rome take weeks to arrive. Local customs clash with Roman law, causing tension. Yet the empire endures, held together by roads, military presence, and shared benefits, protection, trade, and Roman citizenship for the privileged. Still, beneath the surface, cracks grow. The further from Rome you go, the more the empire feels like a mask stretched thin across 1,000 different faces. The divide between rich and poor grows wider with each generation. Patricians feast in marble villas, while plebeians queue for grain and labour long hours for meagre pay. Slaves do the hardest work, but freedmen and citizens still struggle to survive. Wealth is flaunted through jewelry, clothing, and lavish parties, as if poverty doesn't exist. Senators debate laws in togas embroidered with purple, untouched by the desperation outside. Even public baths and forums reflect class divides, with separate spaces for the elite. Rome boasts unity, but inequality defines daily life. Your birth, not your merit, usually decides your fate, no matter how loud the Republic claims to speak for all. As Rome ages, cracks deepen. Political infighting weakens leadership, while emperors rise and fall with alarming speed. Some reigning only months before being assassinated. Civil wars erupt, draining resources and morale. The economy falters under heavy taxes and inflation. Borders strain under pressure from Germanic tribes, Persians, and internal revolts. Emperors stretch themselves thin, trying to hold it all together. Citizens feel the shift. Streets once filled with triumph now echo uncertainty. Statues gather dust, and temples crumble without funds. Even the gods seem quieter. Rome still stands, but beneath its stone facade, something essential begins to slip through the cracks. The average Roman may sense decline, but can do little about it. They wake, fetch water, work, and sleep, life continuing in its rhythm. Even as the empire begins to shake, news of distant uprisings or corrupt governors trickles in, but for many, survival is too consuming to worry about distant politics. Bread lines grow longer, taxes sting harder, and coinage feels lighter each year. Still, festivals go on, baths fill with chatter, and chariots still race at the Circus Maximus. The illusion holds, for now. Rome's foundations tremble, but its people cling to routine. Unaware they live in the twilight of something once thought eternal. Rome doesn't fall in a single day or to one enemy. Instead, it's death by 1,000 cuts. Invasions from without, decay from within. Barbarians breach borders, sacking cities that once symbolized Roman might. The Visigoths sack Rome in 410 CE, shocking a world that believed the capital untouchable. Yet even then, life continues. Merchants still trade, temples still echo with prayers. The empire fragments slowly, provinces slipping away like sand through fingers. By the time the Western Empire falls, many citizens don't even realize it. They just know that the roads are rougher, the coin is weaker, and the soldiers now speak a different tongue. In the east, Rome lives on as Byzantium, a slimmer, wealthier cousin in Constantinople. It keeps Roman laws, language, and culture alive for nearly 1,000 years more. While the west fades, the east flourishes, building glittering churches like Hagia Sophia and preserving knowledge that would later spark the Renaissance. Emperors still call themselves Roman, and citizens still believe in the legacy of Caesar. But the world has changed. Latin fades, Greek rises, and Christianity becomes dominant. Rome's soul evolves, shaped by new forces. Though the marble crumbles in the west, the idea of Rome survives, reborn, rebranded, but never fully extinguished. Looking back, Rome is both awe-inspiring and appalling. It builds aqueducts, roads, and law codes that shape the modern world, but also thrives on slavery, conquest, and cruelty. It gives us literature, architecture, and political thought, yet also gladiator games and public executions. To admire Rome is to wrestle with contradiction. It's the foundation of Western civilization and a brutal empire that devoured countless cultures. Historians debate its greatness and its guilt. But one thing is certain, no one forgets Rome. Its shadow stretches across centuries, haunting and inspiring everything from governments to language. In many ways, we're all still living in its ruins. The romantic vision of Roman life, togas, banquets, marble villas, belongs to the few. Most Romans live in hardship, filth, and fear, constantly negotiating with hunger, illness, and injustice. For them, there are no scrolls of glory or statues in the Forum. Their stories survive in graffiti, broken pottery, and skeletal remains. Yet they built the city, fought its wars, and fed its markets. They are the unseen millions whose sweat powered the empire. Historians dig through ash and bone to hear their muffled voices. And in doing so, we begin to see Rome not just as an empire, but as a place where people struggled, hoped, and endured, just like us. If you were dropped into ancient Rome, chances are you wouldn't last long. The smells, the heat, the noise, the danger, they would overwhelm even the most adventurous traveler. No clean water from the tap, no quiet nights, no emergency services. Medicine would hurt more than it helped, and justice would depend on your social rank. You'd miss privacy, softness, and antibiotics within hours. Your clothes would chafe, your stomach would revolt, and the bread would crack your teeth. Rome isn't a theme park. It's a hard, brilliant, brutal world that chews up the weak. And in that world, most of us moderns would be very, very soft. Still, Rome draws us in. We tour its ruins, read its histories, and dramatize its emperors. We imagine ourselves in togas, sipping wine in shaded courtyards or commanding legions across distant lands. But real Roman life was rarely elegant. It was noisy, sweaty, and unforgiving, and yet it endured. That's what fascinates us. How did this chaotic, violent, vibrant machine last for centuries? How did it shape so much of what came after? Maybe we admire Rome not because it was perfect, but because it wasn't. It was a mirror, showing us the best and worst we can be, sometimes in the very same breath. We call Rome eternal, yet it teaches us about impermanence. Great cities burn, emperors fall, statues crumble, languages die, but ideas persist: law, order, ambition, innovation. Rome shows that civilization isn't a guarantee, it's a constant effort. Its fall reminds us that even the mighty must adapt or collapse. Its rise reminds us how far people can go with vision, labor, and often cruelty. The empire is gone, but the questions it posed remain. What makes a society strong? What makes it just? How long can something built on conquest truly last? Rome may have fallen, but it still whispers these riddles through its ruins. You wouldn't last a day in ancient Rome, and that's not a judgment. It's a reminder. Our comforts, rights, and protections are fragile luxuries built on the struggles of countless generations. Rome didn't have modern medicine, labor laws, or plumbing as we know it. Its citizens endured conditions we'd find intolerable, yet they kept going. That resilience is worth remembering. So when you sip clean water, sleep safely, or file a complaint without fear, pause and thank the unnamed Romans who never had that chance. Because history isn't just about glory, it's about pain, and how we choose to rise from it. So tonight, As you lie in bed, surrounded by silence, comfort, and modern convenience, try to imagine falling asleep in a smoky Roman insula, rats scurrying, neighbors yelling, and fire always a threat. Picture the aching bones from carrying buckets, the sting of bad bread, the scent of sweat and sewage. Now let that contrast soothe you. You're not in Rome. You're safe. You're fed. You can close your eyes knowing you probably won't wake to screams or collapsing walls. And in that peace, spare a thought for the ones who came before, who lived and died in the noise and dust of the empire that shaped our world. Imagine the sun rising over Rome's smoke from 100 cooking fires curls into the morning sky. Voices echo from alleys, sandals slap against cobblestones. Somewhere, a merchant opens his stall, a mother scolds her child, and a senator rehearses a speech. Life begins again, loud, chaotic, and restless. The city doesn't sleep so much as shift its weight. From temples to taverns, everything has its rhythm. You can almost smell the olive oil, hear the clatter of carts, feel the heat bouncing off stone. This was Rome, not a museum or myth, but a living, breathing force. Imperfect, alive, and unforgettable. The streets carry countless footsteps, soldiers on leave, beggars, slaves running errands, children laughing, lovers whispering near fountains. Rome is a city of stories, but most were never written down. They vanished like smoke, scattered with the wind. A lost ring, a stolen loaf, a secret kissed. History doesn't record these things, but they mattered. They shaped lives. Rome wasn't just emperors and wars, it was people trying to live, trying to matter, trying to survive the day. If you walked those streets, you might not find Cicero or Caesar, but you'd find someone like you, hoping, working, and carrying the weight of an ordinary life. You wouldn't be alone in struggling with Rome. Even native Romans found it hard. Crushing taxes, crowded housing, unclean water, frequent illness. Comfort was rare, luxury rarer still. For the poor, every day was a gauntlet of chores, noise, hunger, and risk. Yet they laughed, loved, and played anyway. They found joy in festivals, pride in their gods, and wonder in a sunrise over tiled rooftops. That resilience is what made Rome strong. Not marble or legions, but the people who got up every morning and faced the chaos. You wouldn't last a day in Rome. But if you did, you'd be changed forever. The soundscape of Rome was constant vendors shouting, hammers ringing, dogs barking, water trickling from fountains. Quiet was rare and precious. You'd hear Latin spoken in 100 dialects, mixed with Greek, Egyptian, and Gallic tongues. It was a city of noise and diversity, of business and belief, and in every echo, the pulse of empire. Rome wasn't polished. It was raw, crowded, and alive. If you stopped and listened, you'd hear more than sound. You'd hear ambition, fear, laughter, the rustle of a tunic, the clink of coins, a whispered prayer to Jupiter. Rome was always talking. The world just kept listening. Even today, the legacy of Rome surrounds us. Our calendars, laws, languages, architecture, and even plumbing bear its mark. Governments still borrow its titles: Senate, Republic, Citizen. Roads we drive on mirror the routes Rome paved. Modern stadiums echo the Colosseum's roar. Latin whispers in science, law, and medicine. Rome is in the words we write and the buildings we build. It's the empire beneath our own civilization, ruined but not forgotten. And that's the point. Rome may have fallen, but its bones still shape our world. You live in its shadow whether you realize it or not. And maybe you always have. Sometimes we ask what made Rome fall. Was it corruption, greed, invasion, or complacency? But maybe a better question is, how did it last so long? Through famine, war, disaster, and plague, it endured for over 1,000 years. Its borders changed, its rulers rose and fell, but its heart beat on. That's the real marvel. Not that it ended, but that it held on for so long. Maybe no civilization is eternal, but if one came close, it was Rome, and perhaps more than its power or violence, it's that stubborn persistence we remember most. The empire that refused to go quietly into history. The ruins remain, scattered across continents, columns leaning against sky, mosaics half buried in dust, roads still traced by satellite. Every stone has a story, a soldier's hand, a mason's sweat, a senator's vanity. We walk through these relics thinking of glory, but what we're really seeing is labor. The unnoticed hands, the anonymous lives. For every named emperor, there were thousands who built the world he ruled. In that sense, the ruins aren't just monuments to the past. They're reminders of effort, of how much it takes to build something that lasts. Rome wasn't a miracle. It was work. The next time you see a film or TV show about Rome, gladiators, orgies, emperors losing their minds, remember that's part of it, but not the whole. The truth is dirtier, sweatier, more ordinary. Rome was laundry lines and lice. It was the ache of hunger, the joy of a hot meal, the relief of a safe night's sleep. It was also triumphal arches and philosophical debates, yes, but mostly it was survival. The real Rome doesn't need to be dramatized. It already was a drama, a gritty, grinding, glorious epic that never asked for permission to be remembered. It simply demanded it. And maybe that's why we keep returning to Rome, not to relive its splendor, but to understand its struggle, to learn what happens when ambition meets reality, when greatness grows tired, when people build something bigger than themselves. Rome is both warning and inspiration, a tale of how power seduces, but also how community endures. When you study Rome, you're studying people, flawed, hopeful, tenacious. You're studying yourself. You might not last a day in ancient Rome, but you can carry its lessons, both cautionary and noble, into every day you live now. Because Rome didn't just shape the past, it speaks to the present. So if this video has lulled you to sleep, good. Rest well, knowing that your bed isn't straw, that no one's dumping chamber pots outside your window, and that the walls won't catch fire because of a dropped oil lamp. You're not squatting over a public latrine or dreading a plague in the streets. You're safe, you're clean, you're lucky, and when you wake, remember, the reason you wouldn't survive Rome isn't weakness, it's progress. We've built something better, because we learned from what came before, and that's the real legacy. Not Rome itself, but what we did after it fell. You don't need to wear a toga to understand Rome. Just walk your city streets and notice the grid, the courthouses, the monuments. Notice how we still debate in senates, how we build triumphs in stone and name roads after leaders. These are Rome's fingerprints. The past didn't disappear, it evolved. Every day we live out echoes of decisions made millennia ago. When we vote, write laws, or build bridges, we're engaging with ancient ideas. You're part of that chain now. You don't need to survive ancient Rome to carry its memory. You just need to live with awareness that we're all standing on centuries. If you stood in the Roman Forum today, you'd feel time pressing down, columns reaching into the sky like broken prayers, stones worn smooth by sandaled feet long gone. You might hear wind whistle where senators once shouted, or see tourists pose where emperors once strode. But if you close your eyes, maybe you'd hear a baker calling, a chisel ringing on marble, a priest chanting to Jupiter. Rome isn't gone. It's layered. The ancient world breathes beneath every footprint. The ruins aren't dead, they're dormant, waiting, whispering, and reminding us that no empire truly vanishes. It simply sleeps in stone. Every era thinks it's permanent. Rome did too. Its leaders carved laws in stone, thinking them eternal. But time wears everything down. What remains is what was built with care, with vision, with meaning. The empires of today may seem unshakable, but Rome teaches us to question that. It teaches humility. Nothing stands forever, not marble, not machines, not even nations. What endures is the human story, our failures, our triumphs, and the lessons we pass on. If Rome's fall means anything, it's this: greatness is not immune to decay. But in its fading light, we find the courage to build again. Somewhere beneath modern Rome, a child's toy lies buried, a clay horse, broken and forgotten. No scroll mentions the child who played with it. No statue bears their name. And yet that toy, like a whisper from the past, speaks more loudly than any emperor's decree. It says someone lived here. Someone laughed. Someone mattered, even if history didn't notice. We study Rome for its grand arcs, but it's the small, silent things that linger. The forgotten lives, the ordinary moments. In the dust of empire, we find ourselves, not in Caesar's triumphs, but in the little clay horse left behind. It's tempting to romanticize ancient times, to see Rome as simpler, nobler, grander. But simplicity came with suffering. Nobility came with violence. Grandeur came at a cost. The aqueducts are marvels, yes, but they flowed over people who lived with little. The Colosseum was, but its foundation is blood. If we're honest, we envy a fantasy Rome, not the real one. The real Rome was harsh, beautiful, and deeply human. To honor its legacy, we must see it clearly. Not as a golden age, but as a mirror, one showing both light and shadow, and that clarity is the most Roman thing of all. If this journey through Rome's daily grind made you uncomfortable, that's good. History isn't meant to be cozy. It should challenge you, make you think, make you grateful. Our ancestors didn't survive so we could forget. They survived so we could build better. Every time we turn on clean water, sleep in warmth, or speak freely, we answer a prayer they never got to say aloud. Rome may be history, but its lessons are urgent. Comfort is a gift. Freedom is fragile. And progress, while never perfect, is real. You wouldn't last a day in ancient Rome, but thanks to it, you don't have to. Perhaps that's why we whisper, Rome, with such reverence. Not because we want to go back, but because it reminds us how far we've come. It reminds us that every stone we lay today will one day be ruin. That every system, no matter how powerful, is mortal. But the values we shape, kindness, resilience, fairness, those can outlive marble. Rome reminds us that empires fade, but ideals can echo, not in temples or triumphs, but in the quiet way we treat one another. If there's any glory left to chase, maybe it's not conquest, but compassion, not empire, but empathy. We started this tale to help you sleep, and maybe, after all these stories, ruins and reflections, you are drifting off now. That's fitting. Rome never truly slept. Fires burned, footsteps echoed, prayers whispered to distant gods. But now, in your room, in your time, there is peace. Let that peace wrap around you like a warm cloak. Let the roar of the Colosseum fade, the dust of the Forum settle. You've wandered far through centuries tonight. And now it's time to rest. The empire can wait. The history will still be there tomorrow. But for now, close your eyes. As the last echoes of Roman voices fall silent in your mind, carry this thought. What you build tomorrow matters. You don't need to carve it in marble or command legions. Just build it in kindness, in patience, in integrity. Rome shaped the world with stone and sword. You shape it with choices, The next empire is not some distant future. It's every act of care, every lesson remembered, every hand extended instead of withdrawn. In that way, we are all architects. So build something worth remembering. And maybe, just maybe, someone in a far-off age will dream of us too. And so, dear listener, whether you're fast asleep or still with us, thank you for walking these dusty roads, for imagining the heat, the hardship, and the heartbeat of an empire long gone. History isn't dead. It's a long conversation between past and present. And you just took part. You don't need to survive ancient Rome to understand it. You've done something harder. You've cared enough to listen. And that, in a world so noisy, is a rare and beautiful thing. Sleep well. Dream boldly. And never stop asking what stories the stones beneath your feet still have left to tell.